Hi, and welcome to our first of four topics where we're going to talk about how to turn around a struggling community. I am Erin Thompson with Aspire for More with Erin, and I am happy that you have joined me today. I appreciate your time. I know how valuable it is. So, here's a little bit about me. 20 years in the assisted living industry. I started my career as a volunteer, then a concierge, then a sales director, and an executive director. And I have turned four struggling communities into high performing communities. I am a performance and confidence coach for senior living leaders, and I also am reaching out to families to try to educate them on what assisted living does and how you don't always want to wait until you need it to move in, and that it is not considered failure to move in. It's actually such a gift. So that's my goal. I want to impact everyone's life that I touch for the better. And I really feel like I speak a language of details that not all companies have the time to teach or support. I am excited to say that I am a 2023 Bridge the Gap ambassador. I'm also a mother of two children and have been married for 19 years, a podcast host for families caring for their elderly loved ones. And then I also have a podcast for senior living professionals. Everything is uncomfortable until it's comfortable, especially starting a podcast, which of course I had no idea what I was doing. So, this is my family caregiver podcast, which is I Have Fallen and Need Some Help, and the Aspire for More with Erin podcast, which is available on most major outlets. This is my occupancy growth, Erin's occupancy growth success. 75% to 100% at my first community as a sales and marketing director in 4 months. My second community that I worked at was the first community that I started at as a concierge. And we were at 64% when I came on as a sales and marketing director. And in about 18 months, we made it up to 95%. At that time, I was the executive director, and it was just a steady climb to the top since I started in that community. Community 3 is actually the same, but different than Community 4. When I came into Community 3, which was a standalone memory care community, we were at 55% with a really bad survey recovery, active recovery going on at that time. And in 18 months, we were able to hit 100% with that score of the really bad survey still being present and visible for everyone to see. And then Community 4 is actually that same community, but purchased by a different company. And so I was over the assisted living and the memory care at that time. And I really honestly don't remember what the occupancy was when I first started back. But it was lower than usual. And we got up to as high as around 100%. My first 2 years, 2.5 years there, and then COVID, we got down as low as 67%. And in 1 year and 1 month after the, epicenter of COVID, did we get up to 100%, which I was really, really proud of. Some of the success in team building and customer satisfaction and survey results are the employee satisfaction of Community 2 grew from 84% to 90% in just 6 months of my executive directorship there. The quality enhancement score grew from 80% to 93% with some really intense focus from me in the executive director role. And then later on, I went through 6 Department of Health surveys. 3 were learning experiences. One of them wasn't my community, but I also learned from that. And then 3 consecutive near perfect surveys, which I am super proud of my team for being able to pull that off. So that's just a little bit about me. And a little fun tidbit is that my grandmother lived in my community for almost 2 years. And you can imagine how difficult that is. I think that it's important, although I believe that we changed her life, and the last 2 years of her life were the best 2 years of her life compared to the previous 5 for sure, if not 10. But you can imagine if your grandmother lived where you worked, how stressful that could be. I was her person and she was mine, and she would literally interrupt meetings to tell me what I have done wrong, what I have not done, what I need to do. And she would make sure that everybody knew every personal information that I didn't want anyone to know. And they knew that I was their boss, but I was not hers. That was something that she wanted to make very clear. And she did. And it was one of the best 2 years of my life. I'll never forget being able to share that with her. She actually stayed at a prior community as a respite stay and then eventually moved into my last community for 2 full years, which was exciting. So I want to get to our main points today, which to me is our mindset, our clarity, and our brand identity. Because anytime we struggle, whether it's in a personal life or in our professional life, the first thing that we have to manage is our mindset. And as leaders, specifically in the senior living industry, we're kind of pulled in 1,000 different directions, and people will, want you here, want you there, and you don't quite know where to turn. Or you've got 5 groups that you have to keep happy. You have to keep your home office happy. You have to keep your residents happy. You have to keep your family members happy. You have to keep your associates happy. And then you've got those pesky Department of Health people or whatever you call it in your state. All of those people can total up to a lot that one person has to manage. And if it's not one person, it's a team, but each individual person in that team has to manage this. And so mindset is important. How we operate out of scarcity versus abundance is very important. And what you think and believe and feel matters. It really does. And so let's tackle our mindset so we can shoot to success, because every successful person has to control their thoughts, has to control the story that they're telling themselves. And the story that we tell ourselves is very important. And we'll learn that in the next few slides. But identifying what we fear the most. What do we fear the most? So survey. I believe that I feared a survey for a long time. And I believe that I would feel a survey currently if I was in community. The survey is a vulnerable type of situation where it's like our fear is literally palpable and we're having somebody dig through all the things and we're waiting for their opinion of what they find. So it can be very vulnerable. It can really put all of the negative feelings on the forefront and be hard to manage for some people. And also allowing yourself to know that this is it. There's almost nothing that I can do to control this situation. And of the few things that you can do, that's what you focus on, you know? But a survey can be your best learning tool. And a survey may not necessarily affect how you operate long term in regards to occupancy, but it can certainly cause a roadblock. And so, how we reframe the negative stories and how we sell the positive stories through a survey is very important. And also, how we use it as a learning tool. One of the best things that happened to me was walking into that community that had that really bad survey, because what comes after failing, which is our number 2 point, is true success if we allow it to. We're scared of failing. I'm scared of failing. But really, it's only failing if we don't learn from it and apply what we learn. Because that community failed and got a very bad survey score, I learned so much through that plan of correction. And so that plan of correction became one of the best things that could have ever happened to me. And how many times have we been able to make the worst thing that happened to us the best thing that happened to us? And it's no different in business setting than it is in a personal setting. So failing only happens when we don't move forward from it, when we don't implement what we learn. And it's human nature to fear it. But it is human nature also to rise above and move forward in it. That's what makes you a success. And how you market it, it can even more make it more of a success to everybody, because failing can be your biggest tool in learning how to overcome and marketing being an overcomer. Rejection has personally been a serious roadblock for me, but we're always scared to be rejected. I think when a family member or consistent people never choose to move into your community, that is like a rejection to you over and over again, and without checking that emotion, we might kind of live in a negative emotion that will prevent us from moving forward. And I believe that you can reframe rejection into redirection, into a greater purpose, into a different purpose, into a better purpose, and not necessarily feel as if you were rejected, because it's okay. I'm not for everybody. We are not for everybody. And assisted living is not for everybody. Right. So when we deal with rejection, it's better to reframe it to, this is just a redirection of the purpose of my life. Later on in a few slides, my own new personal definition of rejection is my value is hid from them because they are not assigned to my destiny, which is a really powerful statement. But it's true. Rejection can be protection. And then what people think of us. You could literally put 1, 2, and 3 together into what people think of us as being why we're so scared of that. A survey will be talked about amongst our peers, what people think of us. Failing could be talked about amongst our peers, what people think of us. The feeling of rejection, and if you're living in that spirit, then what people think of us, we're sitting here telling ourselves that we are less than and that people are talking about us as less than because we've been rejected. But all those stories that we tell ourselves is not the truth. They're just stories based on circumstances. And then we start feeling certain ways about them. But what you believe matters, and the stories that you tell yourself matter. So we as an industry just come through COVID. COVID will be a part of our life, just like a stomach virus or a flu or a respiratory infection. And so we've got to now start looking at it differently. What do you believe matters? So we can identify our circumstance, which is factual. We are in a community that is struggling, or we have a community that is struggling. And so what are the stories that we're telling us about that community that is struggling? It's too hard. I don't have any help. I'm so tired. My community is needing a lot of work. I just don't think I can do it. I don't have the support I need. The marketing director isn't doing the job. I'm too overwhelmed. All these things in combination just consistently take us to a place where we don't want to be. It's in a negative state. And if we're in a negative state, we cannot literally change our state to a positive one without rewriting these stories, because success comes from believing that you can. And there's not one belief statement in this box. And yet these are the same statements that people are telling themselves multiple times a day. The truth is, success is 80% mindset and 20% everything else. This is important. You are not defined by your thoughts. The voice in your head is not always right. And it isn't always you. That's important, because some of the things we tell ourselves may have come from somebody else. And when we say it over and over again, we start believing it, and it may not even have come and originated in your mind. No matter how many strategies and tactics you learn, none of them will make a lasting difference if you are not in control of your thoughts. This is such a true statement for me. This is such a true statement for many people. When you study successful people and you hear about the things that they do, repetition and thought control and mindset control are the top of their list, because you may have a very natural basketball shot, but if you don't practice it, and if you don't believe that you're good, or you allow your mind to take you to negative places, you're not going to be the best that you can be. So strategies and tactics are important. They don't mean anything if you don't have the mindset to support them from a positive standpoint. I believe that, and we're talking about mindset right now, okay? But I believe that there are 3 things that sets apart any community if you can use these 3 things in every department, in every opportunity that it presents itself. If you use these 3 things, you will be a success. You have to identify patterns. You have to use the patterns, and you have to create new patterns. And right now, we're going to talk about it from a mindset standpoint, but you can talk about this from a marketing standpoint, from a maintenance standpoint, from a first impression standpoint, from a morale standpoint. There's so many things that I use this for that is so important. First step would be identifying patterns. And because we're talking about mindset right now, then let's talk about identifying the negative thoughts that you think about the most. When you think about the negative thoughts that you think about the most, then you have a pattern. And then you can say, do I have a pattern that serves me? I believe that the odds are no, not unless you've mastered that mindset. So if you can identify what your thoughts are, write them down. And to me, writing down the thoughts are how you identify them. Because again, we can trick ourselves into believing that we don't have negative thoughts that plague us. And maybe you don't, but the majority of us do. So when you write them down, that gives them credibility. What are you most afraid of? One of mine was I'm not enough. And it was deep rooted in I'm not enough. And so when I apply that thought to different circumstances and to a survey and to termination, if those are things that I think of or what people think of me, I instantly feel smaller. Instantly. And I got very good of making myself feel bigger even when I feel smaller, but that's exhausting, right? It's just so much nicer if we can say nice things about ourselves. So when you identify them, write them down because we want to use them, which is the next step. And to me, I believe a superpower for anyone. Use the patterns. We've identified that we have negative thoughts consistently about all the things. So we want to use these thoughts to fuel you, not to stop you. Use these thoughts to remind you how you feel and how you never want to feel again. And then use these thoughts in order to create the new stories that you will replace them with. Once you identify the patterns, you use the patterns, you want to create the new patterns. So rewrite the negative stories you tell yourself into empowering stories. Now, this is a tool that you can use in marketing. This is a tool that you can use in morale building for your team, in your own morale building, in your own leadership. Rewriting the negative stories to tell yourself the empowering stories is how you make yourself different from everybody else. That is how you change your mindset. I sent you a journal in the email. And if you want a journal, you can certainly email me and I'll be more than happy to give you one. But inside this journal, it gives you prompts for you to talk and write every day what your goals are, what could stand in your way, and how you're going to overcome them. I also put things in there like, how do you feel today? What did you learn today? What excited you today? Because it's good for you to know that about yourself. And then if you can make a habit to do that 3 to 5, 7 times a week, then in 30 days, you go back and you look at that journal again, you're going to find patterns. And those patterns are either going to serve you or they're going to hurt you. And then it would be your responsibility to decide which ones you want to remove from your life. Because when you go back and you look and you write down the goals and then you go back and you see that you actually met them, you gave yourself credit and you deserve that credit because we don't give ourselves enough credit nor grace. So I believe it's a good tool for you to use to ensure your mindset success. So these are some of the news stories that I tell myself when I get into a negative thought loop. And I do believe these, and I've felt these even when I was inside of a community. When things are going bad, good. We are learning solutions. There is good and bad, and all this will make us stronger and better. It doesn't last forever. The bad does not last forever. There is going to be good that comes out of it. And so when you learn the good through the bad, you're stronger. you're more prepared for the next one. And when that situation comes up again, you know how to handle it, which is so cool. Life happens for me, not to me. That's the biggest lesson that I think I've learned really in the course of the last few years. The life does not happen to me, it happens for me. And if you can really reframe your brain uh, or to believe that and see the good and the bad, then it all works together. You know, we have to remind ourselves that life is happening for us and not to us, right? I mean, we have to remind ourselves that, but it is so true. I mean, can we look back at our lives and we can see how one thing has always led to another. And even the worst day can become your best day if you rewire your brain to think that way, which is a pretty powerful exercise for you to do that. When I feel rejected, I feel that my value was hidden from them because they were not assigned to my destiny. I heard Jamie Kern Lima say that. She was the founder of It Cosmetics, and she was literally rejected by somebody based on her looks and her body type in selling cosmetics. And that was a $1.2 billion mistake for that man who said that to her. And he apologized. But how she reframed that story in her mind, which was a powerful blow to anyone, is that person was not assigned to my destiny. It didn't stop her from selling her cosmetics. It propelled her and it gave her confidence in knowing that they're just not going to be there at the end with me. And she was $1.2 billion richer for believing that thought process. Because had she believed that she wasn't small enough or she wasn't pretty enough or whatever, then she would not have the success that she had. And that is powerful, folks. That is powerful. The idea that this too shall pass and that I am more than enough should be going in your mind every day. In order to move on from hurt and disappointment, I have to value my purpose more than I am holding on to my pain. And I can only control what I can control. Once I say that to myself, I go, okay, so let's assess the situation and see what I can control and what I can't. And I'm going to let go of the rest. And I'm going to focus on what I can affect change with. Everything else has to go away because we're going to get lost in that. And we can only focus on what we can do. And then there's this statement that I believe is very powerful. The only thing keeping me from the success I want is the story I keep telling myself on why I do not have it. My beliefs will create or destroy my success, and change your story, change your life. Okay? So think about where you are today as a person, as a community, and identify what stories you're telling yourself, and then rewrite those stories into the positive ones like Jamie Kern Lima did for her feeling of rejection. They were hidden from my value because they are not assigned to my destiny. And I am more than enough, and I am capable of turning this community around and having a thriving, healthy, very active community. All of that's possible. You just have to believe it. And so when you're going through your rough times, just remember this will pass. It's a temporary growth phase, and use these words, these phrases to help you through it. Imposter syndrome is literally just another term for self-doubt. Number 10, you are a wild success. You earned it. You worked for it. You deserve it. Give yourself credit. Anytime you feel self-doubt, that's just fear kind of creeping up. Move through it. Work through it. That's how you get stronger. Your muscles hurt after you work out. That means you're doing something right, right? When you feel that fear creep up, keep going, and you're going to get better. That's what I've always learned, right? So now that we have our mindset, right, and aware of our mindset and how we can correct it, we really want to figure out what our awareness is at a community level. Who are we and how did we get here? And I believe that every community has their own story. And if you are really not honed in on what your story is, then you can't create the positive story that's going to get you to where you want to be. Because the negative story is available for everyone. Even if you're 100% occupied, there's a negative story available for us to really hone in on, but that's not what we want to do. We want to figure out where we are, how did we get here, and then how and why we're going to get to the next phase, which is our success growth phase. So I put occupancy here because that's the easiest form of challenges that all of us face. But if yours is not an occupancy challenge, it's a survey problem challenge, or a morale problem, you can certainly exchange that word occupancy for that. So what's your occupancy at today? What is the budgeted occupancy for you? And then an awareness of how did we get to our current occupancy percentage, right? Here's where we are. Let's just say we're at 50%. And then we're budgeted for, we'll say 75%. So we're 25% off the mark. How did we get to 50%? Was it a lot of residents passed away and that was outside of our control? Is it people are not happy with customer service and so they're moving to a competitor? Is it because we're priced too high for our market? There's patterns that we can identify. And if we take the opportunity to identify those patterns, then we can kind of see what we need to fix in order to start moving forward and not backwards. And then the next question is really important, is why do you want to succeed? Because the why is the power behind success. Because you're here at the bottom now, and you want to get up to the top sooner rather than later. And it's not how, how you've got the spreadsheet of how, right? You've got your metrics. You make so many phone calls a day. You make so many phone calls a month. You want your percentage of inviting people from the phone to the tour. And then you want the percentage from the tour to the move-in, right? So you've got your how, but you're not successful still. The thing is your why. Why do you want to be successful? How is not going to work unless you're committed to the why. Do you know why you want to be successful? I mean, for me, it was changing lives. I want to change lives of people. I want to help the families and I want to help the residents of who we serve. And I want to better the associates that are working inside of my community. And the only way to do that is to show people that you can come from the bottom and go to the top. But if you're not committed to your why, you're not going to be committed to the how, because the how is going to be really hard. It's going to take a lot of sacrifice. It's going to take a lot of work. And that's why your why is important. The reasons will propel you to the how. When you have to make 25 phone calls in a day, your why is going to be the important, because you already know how to pick up the phone and dial. That is what's important. So when you're looking at it from a big perspective, right? And we're not a cohesive team, we're struggling right now, or it's a new team, or you're trying to figure out your why, like how do I move forward? How do I get the message right? To me, you have a high occupancy and performing community when you have these 5 things. Your why is because you love people and you want to change their lives, because you love the people inside your community that you're working with, because you want to change their life. You want to keep them employed. You want to have people have bonuses and to meet the goals, because you're changing lives. And by changing people's lives, you're making the business better. And so when you have your love or your passion at the top, the next thing that you have is connection, because now you're connected to the people who want to help you succeed your goal, right? You're connected to the people who can make success happen. And then when you have your love and you have your connection, then you got your clarity. And then with clarity brings confidence, and with confidence brings courage. So they all work together, because if you're working out of fear, there is no connection. There's no connection in working in fear. There's no connection with people if they're working in fear. Everybody has to feel loved and supported. And I'll tell you what, passion sells. If you don't have the passion for what you do along with the love, you're not going to have the connection, and the clarity is going to be hard to find. And then your confidence is going to be minimal. And then you're going to lack the courage to do what's required to be successful. So love is your reason why. Passion, changing lives, helping people. That is love. And then you fill your team up with people who have that same connection point, and now you've got clarity. Our goal is to work together to meet the needs of our residents and their families, and now you have the confidence to do the courage to do the hard things. It's a powerful lesson, and it cannot be fear-based. And sometimes our industry can be a bit more fear-based, but if we can shift it to we're changing people's lives, and the more people you talk to, the more people's lives you will change, the better. The number one thing that I have learned in my career that was my point of difference is that I strived to be this quote from Maya Angelou. I have learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. How you make a family member or a resident or associate feel when they first walk through the door and when they last walk through your door is how you will become a success. The way that you talk to them, the way that you solve their problems, the way that you make them feel seen, heard, and valued, and you do that on a consistent basis, it is just inevitable for success to happen. Making people feel seen, heard, valued, important, those are the reasons why your why need to be, which will then lead to your success. And then we get to clarity. And I believe that every community has their own identity. You can be a part of a bigger organization with the big brand, but how you deliver those policies and procedures are very, very important and unique to you. They're unique to you in the way that your team delivers them. I used to have a work for a company where the sister community was just a few miles down the road, and I got asked this question a lot. What is the difference between you and your sister community? And my response was me, the team inside this community, the longevity of the associates that have been here, and how we change the lives of our residents, how we deliver on what our company wants us to do. That's the difference inside our community. Sure, we can talk about all the aesthetics and the different things, but when it comes down to it, the difference maker are the people in the community and how people lead them and bring the best out in them. Brick and mortar is fine, but people want to feel important. People want to feel loved. People want consistency. And not every community can do that. And if you can, you will be successful. Let's talk about why brand matters. It takes the personal component out of selling and managing, and it allows you to sell and manage easier. Not everybody is comfortable with selling. If you think of selling as service, it's a little bit different, but if you're just going to ask a nurse to sell, it's going to be a little bit difficult for her. So when you have an identity and you have talking points around that identity, then you've got it a lot easier for different people to come in and do tours if the sales and marketing director is not available. And it takes the personal component out of it. The brand identity of your community will give you confidence in your team. Okay. Your team knows the identity. And so therefore you have confidence in knowing that we're confident in the way we think about ourselves. It will allow a cohesive marketing approach for all managers to understand and use, and it will give your non-manager associates the identity to understand and apply to themselves. I am a caregiver inside this community, and I change the lives of our residents by knowing what they like and they don't like and making sure that I give that to them appropriately. Bringing a cup of coffee every morning at 8:10 because I know that's what they like. Making their beds with the special corners because I've been told enough times, I know now to do it in advance. That is amazing. That's a brand because we're changing lives. And that's the theme of this community. And so therefore everybody knows that I change lives and then they have an example to give. It creates a team atmosphere. Nobody's looking for words to say. They understand what their role is and how they excel at their role. And it creates talking points for all meetings, tours, and family conversations. When you have a brand, you stick to the brand. You stick to the talking points because that's what sells. And that's where the confidence is that allows the selling process to be easier. So here's just a few of the identity statements that I've used in the past communities. Um, we love our residents like our own family here. My grandmother and grandmother-in-law and my activities director mother lived here and they thrived. We have an amazing team that works at this community, and some have been working with us for 10 plus years. I have been here for a combined 10 years of service. We are committed to changing the life of your loved one. We understand control is important, and we will allow your loved one as much control as we can. If she wants 7 grapes, then we will give her 7 grapes. That is a true story, and I use that all the time. We are currently working through a survey experience that highlighted some areas we can improve on. We have an amazing plan that we are following to ensure our residents get the best care in our community. And sometimes these experiences make us better, and we are excited to get better and serve better. We owned the issue. Our plan of correction is our plan. And now we're actively working the plan to ensure that everyone is getting the proper care that they deserve. That is how a survey can be a tool, and it can be a great talking point inside of your marketing department. We are in the business of changing lives, and here are a few examples of how we have done that. And then you mention the activities that really make your community pop. And then you mention the relationships that residents have made while being inside of the community and how that has changed their life. Because that's important, because we are fighting a perception that moving into assisted living is failure, when really it's not. And the more we showcase the positive winning relationships that are built through being inside of a community like ours, the easier it is to sell. And so these are just some of the statements that I've used in the past of some of our communities based on our brands. What is yours? What are your pros and your cons? And then how can you take the cons of your community and turning into the pros when selling to your family members who are looking for for a community to keep their loved one in? We're back to my favorite superpower tools, which is identifying the patterns and using the patterns and creating the patterns. So let's identify some patterns. I think that you can literally look at the strengths and the weaknesses inside of your community for you to understand how you can pull together a marketing message. So look at what are the areas that you get the most compliments on. Is it care? Is it culinary? Is it your marketing department? Is it your housekeeping department or maintenance? When you think about all the compliments that you've received over the course of your employment at that community, write them down. And is there a pattern? Is there a reason? Is it because that particular manager is very passionate and very good with follow-up and follow-through and communication? If so, create a power statement for that. And then you start using that in all the tours. What departments are running efficiently and basically running themselves? Create power statements for that department, which can be used in meetings and in marketing tours and marketing events. Are there associates that have been working at your community for a long time? If so, that's how you can really tell a family member, hey, yes, the industry certainly is having its fair share of staffing drama, but we have 12 associates that have been here longer than 10 years or longer than 2 years. Whatever it is, bring it up, because you're bringing a power statement, our positive statement, and it's going to negate the negative statements that somebody may bring. And then it's good for you to know what your negative stories are about your community and where you get the most complaints. Because if you can be aware of that, then you can create and use patterns to recreate, and train and be aware and make changes to those areas. And so here's how we use the patterns. I've kind of went over that just then, but here on the left-hand side, we are sitting here talking about the things that I just said. And then here's examples of how to use them. Make these your selling points if they line up with what your prospect needs. It's important that we take the time and literally listen to what the family members coming in and want us to do for their loved ones. So you don't want to sit here and just have this big tour path for somebody if you didn't even know that there's an introvert there, right? So listen to them. If activities are not going to be a big selling feature for this tour, then skip that. Show them, but really skip the selling points of that, right? And talk about the other areas that may be a big selling point for you, which may be housekeeping and the aesthetics of the building, if they like to sit outside alone on the porch, or the care team that's really, really important. And then brag on the department that you have that really, really does the best. So the person touring can hear positive things that you have to say about that community and about that department inside of that community. And then highlight your longest working associates, your associates that have been here the longest, and then be aware of any negative patterns so you can recreate those into new power positive statements. And then when you're in a tour and you're talking about a department that's working at its best, at its highest level, make sure that that department knows that you're talking to them, talking to prospects about that, because it gives them pride. It gives them confidence so they can interact on a tour in a great way. And then it also shows that other departments that could not be running as efficiently as possible, that gives them motivation that, hey, I want to be talked about in a positive way too. So we've identified patterns, we're using on them in our favor, and then we can create new ones, right? So really, really create power positive statements and start focusing on those statements and all the opportunities to enhance your community on tours, in meetings, and outside marketing. Emphasize the good every time you're on a tour or in a meeting, because you're building positivity. And it may take a long time, but you're planting seeds that will soon come to harvest. Know that repetition is mastery and confidence building. You're not going to get good at something the next day. It's going to take time in order to really feel like the things that you're changing are making a difference. There may be some things that are going to be done immediately, right? And make the difference. But then there are others that it's not. It's going to take some time. View every struggle as an opportunity to improve and get better. Obstacles are only obstacles if you allow them to prevent you from moving forward. Create a pattern that keeps you moving forward no matter what's in your way. Your mindset will keep you from moving forward. Create a new pattern because you've already identified that the old one didn't serve you. How you believe about your community is important in moving forward to success. Sometimes, if you feel like you've fallen out of love with a company or a person or whatever, figure out what you do love. Figure out what brings you passion in the circumstances that you're in, and then create that power positive statement to propel you to get better, to think better, to see things through a different lens. Your homework is to have fun, to show appreciation, to give yourself grace for maybe identifying some patterns that do not serve you, that really hurt you in your forward progress. Give yourself credit for what you've accomplished. Write it down. I believe that power stacking is important. We stack the negatives, and that's why we get so angry, and we don't stack the positives as much as we should. So give yourself credit. Rewrite the worst day to your best day. Rewrite the objections that you get constantly into positive power statements about our communities, and give yourself credit for everything that you've done, because it's more than you think it is. And then take massive action. You can think about the top 5 objections that you have, especially if they're the same over and over again. and create power statements that will reject the objection, right? So I had a community that had apartments that were less than 300 square feet. It was a memory care. And every sales and marketing director, and even myself at the beginning, was like, oh my gosh, nobody's going to want to live here. Well, the truth of the matter is, our residents don't really care about apartment sizes, but our family members do. And so one of the tools that I used was to just kind of approach it from a proactive standpoint and say, our community was built with a Alzheimer's specialist creating it. And the reason behind small, cozy apartments is the ability to feel safe. It's the ability to not be overwhelmed by space, because most of our residents don't even really have the spatial reasoning intact, and they're not in their apartments. The goal is to keep them out and keep them involved, not to get lost in an apartment size that they do not even appreciate. And so when they saw the apartment, they were like, oh, you're right. But then they saw all the residents walking around the community, and then I was double right. Positive reinforcement. So no, you and I could not live in this apartment, but your loved one can, because they don't value the space that they have now. Are they staying in one room the entire time, using one bathroom, forgetting where the bathroom is? If that's the case, then the space is not important to them. And our residents don't have a problem with the lack of space. Never once had one resident said to me, I wish my room was bigger. Well, that's kind of changed, but you know what I mean. For the most part, none of my residents had said, I wished my room was bigger. They were very happy with being out and about and not in their apartments. And so, what somebody could view as an objection, and you hear it enough times, you can literally change that objection, that worst case scenario, into a positive case scenario with the experience that you have with your loved one, with the residents inside the community. So think about that. Your top objections, and do those objections from people who don't live there actually affect your residents in a negative way? If they don't affect your residents in a negative way, then create power statements that correctly identify how your residents feel about said objection. And the next time you have that, you have something that you can use to kind of combat that. And the more you say it, the more confident that you're going to get with. Believe me, you will be very happy and you will see success with that. So take massive action in that direction. This is just a little bit about me and what my company does. Aspire for More with Erin was really built out of wanting to support people in the senior living industry through group and one-on-one mentoring. Have never been a part of a group of people who were like-minded like me and who wanted success and working in the same industry until I actually purchased package from a coach about me kind of starting this, and I realized how important it is for us to get together and support each other, to lean on each other, and to grow with each other. Not many people understand our business, and I feel like the industry can sometimes unintentionally put us against each other when really we need each other. We need the support of somebody who's not measuring us or assessing us or evaluating our performance. We just need support. And it's not always easy to find that from our superiors, our supervisors, because they need the same support. And they're traveling all over the country trying to give that to many people, along with their own set of expectations. At Aspire for More, we focus on the process rather than the outcomes or the goals, because your commitment to the process of success will ensure your success, not the outcomes. You have to commit to the process in order to receive positive outcomes that you want. I plan on doing this more on tackling how to turn around a struggling community. This is what I believe where the beginning starts. It starts with your mindset. It starts with being aware of where you are, where you've been, and where you want to go. And then understanding the identity of your community and really what your strong points, what your point of differences are, and then how to get them out there and sell them. I thank you for your time today. It has been a pleasure, and I appreciate you um, taking your time out to spend it with me. See you soon.